you start a new job, and somewhere in the onboarding paperwork is a form with the word 401k on it and an empty box waiting for a number. A coworker leans over and says, "Just do the Roth," and you nod, like you know exactly what that means. So here is the good news, right up front. The entire difference between these two accounts comes down to one question. Do you pay the tax now or later? That is it. Everything else is detail. And one of these two accounts can hand you free money that the other one simply cannot. In 2026, you can put up to $24,500 a year into a 401k. And in one version of this, the growth comes out completely tax-free. Let me untangle it. First, let me take something off your shoulders. If these accounts confuse you, that is not a gap in you. Nobody ever sat you down and explained the one difference that actually matters. The system hands you a form and quietly assumes you already know. You are not behind. You were just never shown the single fork these two accounts turn on. So let me show you. And I am not going to tell you which one to pick, because the honest answer depends on your own tax situation. What I can do is make the choice finally make sense. Here is the picture I want in your head. Think of money you set aside for later as a crop. There are only two moments it can ever be taxed: when you plant the seed or when you gather the harvest. That is the whole choice wearing a costume. A Roth is taxed on the seed. You pay the tax on the money going in, right now, out of a paycheck that has already been taxed. But once that seed is planted, it grows untouched, and the entire harvest, everything it becomes, comes out tax-free. A traditional 401k is the mirror image. The seed goes in tax-free, straight from your pay before tax is taken. But you pay tax on the harvest. Tax the seed or tax the harvest. Hold that image. Let me walk each account slowly, starting with the 401k, since that is the one on the form at work. A 401k is simply a retirement account offered through your employer. You pick a percentage of your paycheck, and it moves in automatically before you ever see it. Here is the first key trait. That money goes in pre-tax. It comes out of your pay before income tax is calculated, which lowers your taxable income for the year. So if you earn $70,000 and put in $7,000, you are taxed as if you made $63,000. The tax on that money is not erased, it is postponed. In 2026, you can contribute up to $24,500 of your own pay. If you are 50 or older, you can add an extra $8,000 on top. Inside the account, the money grows with no tax on the gains, year to year, while it compounds. Compounding just means your growth starts earning its own growth. Then comes the harvest. When you withdraw in retirement, every dollar, your contributions, and all the growth is taxed as ordinary income that year. There is also a fence around it. Pull the money out before about age 59 and a half, and you generally owe tax plus a 10% penalty. And there is a fifth piece, the employer match, that is a big enough deal to get its own moment later. First, the other account. The Roth IRA is a different animal, and the first difference is where it comes from. The IRA part means individual. You open it yourself, at a brokerage, not through your job. The second difference is the tax timing, and this is the whole point. You fund it with money you have already paid tax on. After-tax dollars go in. No deduction today. But here is the payoff. Everything inside grows tax-free, and when you take it out in retirement, as long as you are at least 59 and a half and have had the account 5 years, those withdrawals are completely tax-free. You settled up with the tax man on the seed. So the traditional 401k gives you a break now and a bill later. The Roth gives you no break now and no bill later. Same idea, opposite ends. The Roth also has a smaller bucket. In 2026, the most you can put into an IRA is $7,500, far below the 401k, and that cap covers your traditional and Roth IRAs combined. There is also an income gate, measured by what the IRS calls your modified adjusted gross income. Above roughly $150,000 filing single, or $240,000 married filing jointly, your ability to fund a Roth IRA directly starts to phase out. And one more difference that matters. A Roth IRA has no employer match. Nobody is adding money for you. It is just you and the tax-free growth. So now you have both. One taxes the harvest, one taxes the seed. Which raises the obvious question. Which one actually wins? That is where the real math comes in. Here is the honest answer, and it surprises people. If your tax rate is exactly the same now as it is in retirement, the two accounts land in precisely the same place. Let me show you. Let me put the assumptions on the screen so nothing is hidden. These numbers are illustrative, made up to show the math, not a prediction and not a target for you. Say you have $1,000, growing at a hypothetical 7% a year for 30 years. On the standard compound math, that $1,000 becomes about $7,600. Now apply an illustrative tax rate of 22%, first to the traditional 401k. The full $1,000 goes in pre-tax and grows to about $7,600. Then the harvest is taxed at 22%, leaving about $5,900. Now the Roth. You pay the 22% on the seed first, so only $780 goes in. It grows to about $5,900 and comes out tax-free. Look at that. About $5,900 either way. When the tax rate is the same at both ends, it is a genuine tie. The account does not matter. Only the tax rate does. So the entire decision hinges on one thing. Do you expect your tax rate to be higher now or higher when you retire? If you expect a lower rate in retirement, the traditional 401k tends to come out ahead because you skipped the tax while your rate was high and pay it when your rate is low. If you expect a higher rate later, the Roth tends to win because you locked in today's lower rate on the seed and let the whole harvest grow beyond the taxman's reach. That is the real math. Not which account is magic. Just when you would rather pay the tax. And nobody can answer that for you because it rests on a future only you can estimate. So I am not going to hand you a pick. Now, the piece I promised to come back to. The one thing almost everyone in personal finance agrees on, whatever they think about seed versus harvest. The employer match. The large majority of 401k plans will match a portion of what you put in. A common formula is 50 cents for every dollar you contribute, up to 6% of your pay. Think about what that actually is. It is not a return, and it is not a bet. It is part of your compensation that only unlocks if you contribute. If your employer offers a match and you do not contribute enough to get it, that is, pay you were offered and left in the drawer. This is the free money from the very start of the video. Which is why, whatever they think about Roth versus traditional, most people capture any available match first, before anything else. Not a directive. Just the near-universal starting point. Here is the last thing that breaks the confusion. This was never really a versus. A 401k and a Roth IRA are not two teams you have to join one of. They are two different tools, and plenty of people use both. A very common shape looks like this. Contribute to the 401k enough to get the full match, then also fund a Roth IRA for the tax-free harvest, if your income lets you. That way, some of your money is taxed on the seed and some on the harvest, which spreads your bet across a future tax rate that nobody can predict. The point is not to crown a winner. It is to understand what each one does, so you can decide what fits your own situation. So come back to the crop. Every dollar you set aside for later gets taxed at one of two moments: when you plant it or when you harvest it. The Roth taxes the seed and lets the harvest come out free. The traditional 401k plants the seed free and taxes the harvest. Neither is a trick, and neither is better for everyone. The winner is decided entirely by whether your tax rate is higher now or later, and by whether there is a match on the table. The whole thing that felt overwhelming on that onboarding form was really just this one question: wearing a costume. Now or later. So here is the one thing to sit with, not a directive, just a question. Do you believe your tax rate is likely to be higher today or higher in retirement? You do not need a perfect answer. Just holding that question is more than most people are ever handed. And if this finally made the two accounts click, subscribe. The next one breaks down the account most people open first and the quiet mistakes that cost them. Plant the seed or protect the harvest. Now, at least, you know which one you are choosing and why.